While the matrics of 2021 await their results in just the next little while, the hard truth is that our education system is still dogged by stark inequalities. This affects the matriculants' future prospects. In many cases, thousands of young people will apply for just a few places at university. Let's speak now to Professor Jansen, the University of Stellenbosch Professor of Education. He's got some important views on this. Professor Jansen, good evening, and thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. There is a huge amount of evidence of the inequality in our education system. Does this inequality in our education system almost simply mirror the inequality in our society? I mean, do we see exactly the same divisions in our society that we see in our education system?
Yeah, we've done some research on this, and what is absolutely amazing to me is that it not only reflects the stratification in the society at the moment, but also how it's always been historically. And so you recall that the apartheid government spent more on whites than Indians and coloreds than Africans. And that reflects perfectly to this day in results in the examinations. And so absolutely what you see on the outside of schools is what you see on the inside of schools, a very stubborn stratification. And this speaks, of course, to the inability, the incapacity of our government to move the needle in that respect.
I mean, one of the things education is supposed to do, and I would argue it's probably more important in our society than almost any other, is that it's supposed to reduce inequality. I mean, in a perfect world, a young black child born in Umlazi would have exactly the same life chances. At the age of 18, would be in exactly the same position as a rich white child born in Jansen or Constantia. Some people call it leveling up. I mean, is that a pipe dream, or is that something we still need to work for? Are we making any progress towards that?
We make progress for individuals, so a person like myself that went to, Cape Flat school, etc., a lot of things fall into place, and I'm able to work my way out of poverty, so to speak. So it works for individuals. It doesn't work for large groups, and this is the problem, because for large groups to benefit from education, you need systemic change, and we don't have systemic change. On any given day, just this week, on any given day, I go into a school that has a brand new aquatic center with sprawling fields, with unbelievable resources, and 10 kilometers away, I'm in a school with nothing. The fact that that hasn't changed means that no matter, even if you go to 12 years of schooling, the outcomes remain unbelievably starkly different depending entirely on which school you go to.
We've spent, and we spend as a country, I think, a higher proportion of our GDP, our entire economic output, on education than just about any other country as a percentage. Now, I fully accept that our education department has to deal with things that other countries don't have to deal with. So we have to feed children, we have to transport children. But there is a bigger question around if we are spending so much money on our education department. I mean, we obviously almost need to double it. I mean, would doubling it have any impact? Is money not the problem?
Money is not the problem. Trevor Manuel wisely said this when he was Minister of Finance. I was quite surprised by his insight at the time. Money is not a problem. Zimbabwe has to feed children. Namibia has to transport children. Mozambique has to feed and transport children. We're not unique in that respect. What we are different in is that the countries I mentioned have actually a relatively much better school systems than we do. And that has to do with the fact that we have not intervened in a way that, 2, 3, 4, 5 things you can do quickly that Zimbabwe did, and you can raise. For example, let me just give you one thing because it's on the agenda today. We have one of the lowest requirements for passing in the region, in the SADC region, right? Zimbabwe still requires of its students that they pass O and A levels. Now, in South Africa, you'll have a huge hullabaloo about, colonial exam systems, and that is a valid criticism. The problem is they kept the standard from before, liberation in 1980 to the present. And that is why any Zimbabwean student coming to a South African university on site does much better than those of our young people who come out of these really broken schools. So, no, we're not unique in terms of provision. We have not been able to turn those resources into results, and that is the problem.
Is it about teaching? Is it about the syllabus? Is it about the exams? Do we need to have a two-tier system like, I mean, it is a British system. It's got a different name there now, but O-levels and A-levels?
I don't think we should go the O and A-level route, but we definitely need to raise the standard. When the standard is raised from 30% for some subjects and 40% for other subjects, when you raise the standard, I can prove it to you, the system responds in such a way that everybody goes up. Everybody then performs to the standard set. It's like in high jump, you know. Yeah, I used to coach high jumping. And if you set the bar low, even the best jumpers just go do what's required to get over the bar. This is also how school systems, and by the way, university systems work around the world. You set the standard high, you enable people to meet that standard, but by themselves, they realize the game is up. So one of the tragedies of today, for example, is the minister will not release to us. I've asked for 5 years, I can't get it. Just stop this 30 and 40%. Just tell us how many kids pass mathematics at 50%. How many kids pass physics, history, languages at 50%. Then you'll see how serious this crisis is. So it's a low standard and the incapacity to prepare people, teacher development, basic infrastructural support, you know, transitioning in the present time from face-to-face to online without much trouble. We've done nothing of that. We've done nothing of that. This pandemic is almost 2 years old, and still we haven't provided the infrastructure that enables a child in Lusikisiki to have exactly the same opportunity to do well as a child in Jansen, and that is our tragedy.
There are various sort of, I mean, you've pointed to some of the problems that we have, and we've had these debates for years about the output, the quality of our basic education system. Do we get, on one level, value for money? You've spoken about what former Minister Trevor Manuel said. Often people blame teachers and teaching unions, and I don't know if that's still possible. I mean, is that something that we need to look at? If we change the pass mark, as you point to, if we raise the standard, would that automatically mean teaching would fall into line?
I think so. And again, I've got evidence for this, you know, that we, and by the way, a very good example is at the University of the Free State, where I actually worked and we raised the standard dramatically. I was called the son of many things for doing that. But you go and look at the results now. We used to be in the bottom in terms of performance, and it's up now. Not because we did anything wonderful. It's just because we said the expectation is that we will do well, and this is how we're going to help you to get there. If we can do that for 26,000 students at the time, we can certainly do it for 26,000 schools. It's not, this is my frustration as somebody who's studied education all my life, is that it really isn't difficult to do, but you need the political will. Let me just say this, SATU is not your problem. Okay, I used to think that 5 years ago. SATU is not your problem. The government is the problem, because the schools are not owned by SATU. But you wouldn't know that because of a Department of Basic Education that's frankly scared of saying to the unions, these are public schools. And you take care of your teachers, that's your job, it's good to have you in a democracy, but you are not going to disrupt the timetable of the children of the poor. And so on. You're going to stop this nonsense that is in the Volman report of selling principals' jobs, you know, under the table. If you just, that is not SATU's problem. In any government with its name, it deals with that problem rather than run scared or act out of self-interest because of alliance politics in our country.
Professor Jonathan Jansen, expert on education. I really appreciate the time and the insights. Thanks very much indeed.